Somebody moved that speaker. I guess it's
Tracks. Recording. Didn't say we could. Just for 15 seconds. Yeah, I just started the recording, so we're good. I'll clean it up if I need
All right, thank you again. Thank you for those studies. Thank you for all the former Hall of Famers that are here with us this evening. A couple of things. There's a lot of firsts tonight. I'm just going to say that there's a lot of firsts. This is one of my firsts. I say first, but this is like my record, 4th year in a row playing hoax. I don't know what's going on. I thought I gave this up some years ago, but turns out we had someone had to step out, and that's how we do it as tennis players. Next man up. Who's ready? Who's ready to go? Let's go. Let's go. So that's just one of those things that we do as tennis players, as a team, and so forth. But I want to thank everyone once again, and I want to welcome everyone to the 2026 Hall of Fame induction ceremony. And my name is Jimmy Coynes. For those who don't know me, got that little crazy name and so forth. But hey, if you know me, it's a good thing. I hope it's a good thing. But anyway, I'm the president of the Tennis Foundation, and once again, I've stepped in for one of those who had to step out and gentlemen relocated and so forth. So here I am again. This is year number 4. A few years ago, I remember being at the Country Club Jazz. Long story short, we're here to represent 2 great folks this evening. And I say great folks, and I look at it in so many different ways, not just as tennis coaches. You know, I call them tennis moms. And the reason I say tennis moms, I had a tennis mom. They took care of me when I was on the court. They took care of me when I was off the court. Even when mom was at work or whatever, they were taking care of me. And they were doing things that I wasn't there to do at that time. So the celebration is amongst a lot of firsts, as I say, once again. And then tonight's inductees, as you heard Russell say earlier, you know, it's Terri Gooch, who's one of those from Columbus. And she played tennis. She coached tennis. She went on and had much greater accolades and undefeated team. And being right there with the group that you played with and grew up with, that's amazing in itself. And you can only say so many things in coaching high school and going on beyond that. You know, it just continues to go and go and go. And then it stretches and reaches so many others. And that's one of the cool things about it. And Walker, once again, you know, a great coach that's done so much for so many. And I look at these ladies tonight as tennis moms. I'm just going to keep saying that because they have played that role for so many. There are those nights when the players were crying and tears were boiling and why did I lose that point? Why did I lose that match? And they were explaining, hey, this happened. This is going to make you better. This is going to get you stronger. Not just on the tennis court, but life itself. And that's one of the accolades that leads on to being that tennis mom. So just wanted to throw that out there. But it's so valuable when we have ladies that can step into these roles or just do these things, and they've brought through so many barriers. And not just that, you're the first that I've known as far as 2 ladies being inducted to the Hall of Fame at this time. So I want to give it a hand for that. That's amazing. But 2 ladies, that's amazing in itself. So just wanted to throw that out there as well. And once again, the Hall of Fame banquets tonight is really the proceeds and the silent auction and everything. It's to give back, and you all are here being a big part of that by participating in the silent auction, by participating in the Hall of Fame, and celebrating with our family, our tennis family, and celebrating with those who are inductees coming on board as new inductees as well. So we have to give that out. So remember to do whatever you can to support. And this is a part of supporting. It doesn't matter what you did. I don't care if you gave $1. I don't care if you say go team, go player. It doesn't matter. That one little thing can push someone so far. You just can only imagine it. My thing was always, my little motto, if I can touch one, I touch many. That one player became a coach. That one player is a teacher, an educator. That one player who's gone on to do other things. They touched so many, but they learned things that they learned on the court. The discipline, the accolades, it all came from things that they learned on the court. And I was one of those one players. I was like, well, if I can do one thing, and I can do this a little bit better. And if I can get a little bit better, and then my thing was down the road, whatever skills or talents that I had, and that's how I look at Terri, and that's how I look at Walker. Whatever skills or talents that they had, they shared. There was no selfish bone in the body at all. It's what they had, they shared, and that touches so many, and it just spreads. That one seed just spreads, becomes many, many flowers. So those things are special. But the foundation provides these things to our young up-and-coming juniors when we reach out and do the silent auction, and we provide donations, etc., along with all of you all who make those things happen. Because the day in and day out, those things are done by people who love the game, people who love to be around others, people who love to enjoy their friends, their families. They know what's going on. They know the dedication. They know what's happening. They see it day in and day out. They touch people in so many ways. But just to go on, there are many things that both ladies did. Juniors, their accolades where they went on for high performance with Walker, many players with Terri. I mean, it just goes on and on to coaching some of the greatest ones that have played the game, played in some of the biggest tournaments that we know to date. I mean, these things were touched by these two young ladies that are here tonight, and that's amazing. They're in the room with us. They're here with us. We're here with you, but you're here with us, and we know that, and that's special, and we appreciate that as well. But that just touches and means so many. And just think about myself one day. I was one of those things as well as teaching and coaching. But for me, it was the same thing. It's that one player. It's that one person. It's that one to go on and teach so many others. And I became that one, and I was like, well, how do you get involved? I remember a gentleman. His name was Jim Warren. He's not with us today, but he made a great, I want to say, thing to me, to approach me about participating in tennis and being a volunteer and so forth. And I was like, volunteer what? Volunteer, I don't have time for that. But then I realized, hey, you can do so much more helping out, volunteering. And that's kind of where it all started for me. That's one of the reasons I'm up here today. It was Jim Warren. There's some others in the room. There's John Cox. There's Cleon McKnight. There's many others that have touched me and so forth as a young man coming up and playing tennis and being in right here. But what I'm going to go ahead and do, I'm going to go ahead and say a prayer for us. So before we have our food come out and everything, so we can take place with that. And we'll get on with our celebration. We'll continue to move forward with it. So I'm going to just go ahead and bow our heads. Lord, thank you for bringing us here this evening. Thank you for this nourishment we're about to nourish our bodies with. Thank you for bringing so many loved ones together to make the best for all of us and to keep us strong and going forward for our children, our future children, those that are with us today, friends, family, all of those who are here to provide the accompaniments to these two wonderful ladies, as I say, tennis moms. And keep us going, keep us strong, O Lord. Amen. Amen. And one quick thing, there's going to be an auction tonight for one of the paintings. It's Lindsay, and that's going to be an auction that's a little separate from the actual silent auction. So what we'll do is auction that painting off, and whomever hires bidder, that'll be at the end. Just want to say that. Enjoy your dinner. Just a quick one. It's Ellen. Ellen Langford. I had her name wrong earlier, but Ellen's over in the corner. Just want to know, the painting that is going to be auctioned, it's being done in the live. It's being done right now. This that's amazing where she can actually be there and just make this thing real. So that is going to be auctioned off later this afternoon after we finish. So we're going to move on. And just a quick note, I wanted to recognize the visitors. Well, the visitors that we do have, USTA Southern, there's several of them. I know they're on the back corner over there. And this is kind of the other part of the room. Usually I can say look at that corner, but They're actually over by the bar, so they're probably picked a good table. You have a team of that group, and most of that group is from Georgia, so just wanted to send out a recognition there. And then also, we have, again, inductees and so forth, and the board members that are here this afternoon as well. We have several board members here presenting, and not presenting, but actually in present. So I wanted to make sure that, and, again, the foundation is here to represent us all. So we're going to go ahead and get started with our first speaker, which is going to be someone introducing my inductees. So this is a special person for that particular inductee as well. First, we're going to start with Terri Gooch, and Russell Brady is going to be representing her as well as her cast. Ms. Brady,
Good evening. It's so good to be here to celebrate Terri and Walker and their accomplishments in the world of tennis. And it is my privilege to introduce my friend Terri Gooch. I first met Terri about 30 years ago at the tennis club, Magnolia Tennis Club in Columbus, for a tennis lesson. Imagine that. A group of us had formed a league team, and we were taking tennis lessons together. My husband Scott and I were new in Columbus, and I knew that a great way to meet people would be to start playing tennis. And over the years, I've realized that that is one of the themes of Terri's life and her tennis career. Promoting tennis as a means of friendship and community and relationship building. So a few years later, and a career change for me, I became one of Terri's pastors at First United Methodist Church in Columbus, and our bond of friendship has continued to grow since then. And one of the beautiful things about Terri is that the smile you always see on her face, her heart is that big. Her heart and her smile are huge. Her love of life, including tennis, is contagious. And she accepts people without judgment. And she becomes one of their greatest cheerleaders. Terri was raised in New Albany, Mississippi by her parents, Lael and Barry Gooch. And she was introduced to tennis at about age 12 in junior high school. And her first tennis racket was purchased with S&H green snaps. And I discovered last night, as I was listening to them tell stories, there also remains at the house an orange water cooler that was also purchased with S&H green stamps. And that was carried by her water girl, her sister Trentis. So for the next 40 years after that, you could probably count on one hand the number of times that Terri was not on the tennis court. She was on the varsity team at what is now New Albany High School. She was a 4-year letterman there and a 3-time MVP. The John Newcomb Tennis Ranch she was there one summer for the first time and was offered a scholarship for the next year because they saw so much promise and ability in her talents. She was named an outstanding young athlete in America and qualified as one of only 3 to represent the state of Mississippi at the Southern Closed Tournament in Nashville, Tennessee. After high school, Terri played tennis at the Mississippi University for Women on scholarship. And there she served as a counselor after her freshman year for the inaugural Mississippi University for Women tennis camp in 1974. And prior to her senior year, she was asked to serve as the camp director, and she held that position for 20 years. Terri received her certification as a professional tennis registry and United States Professional Tennis Association teaching pro. Now, I'm told that only 5 to 6% of those testing receive the highest ranking on their first attempt. You are looking at one of the 5 to 6%. Terri's influence and impact on tennis, especially in the state of Mississippi, are vast. So I want to offer a few of those moments in time that are important to her. One of Terri's favorite things is when her former players come to her and say, "Remember when." So Terri, just for the next few moments, remember when. After Terri graduated from MUW, she coached at SD Lee High School and Heritage Academy, both in Columbus. She coached 9 high school state championship teams. And while coaching at Heritage Academy, Terri devised a format for the Mississippi Private School Association that is still used today. It took the classes A, AA, and AAA and enabled players to compete within their own classes for state championships, allowing winners and runners-up of each individual class to compete at the overall tournament. Terri was named USPTA High School coach for Mississippi and for the Southern District of the United States, Coach of the Year. She always found a way for her players' efforts to point toward the contribution to the whole, and she imparted a love of the game to her students, bringing varsity players into coaching clinics to help create interest for tennis for new players and for new team members. Terri understands the benefits of playing opponents that are better than you, and even losing some of those matches, and learning from every time you play. After coaching high school, Terri was honored to return to MUW, and there she coached for a number of years, and her team's best record was an undefeated season in 1991. After coaching at MUW, Terri became the first full-time teaching pro at Magnolia Tennis Club in Columbus, and she was there for 13 years. It was during those years that she coached the Magnolia USTA League teams to state and sectional tournaments. She taught tennis drills and lessons in tactics for players aged 4 to 75. And she implemented innovative programs like the First Bounce, Tournament Prep for Juniors, Tennis College 101 and 201, and even a graduate school tennis for adults, because she understood that learning and loving the game of tennis could happen no matter what age you were. Her passion for teaching young people the game of tennis continued through the Columbus Junior Novice Challenge. Players and their parents came in, and Terri taught them how to understand the feed-in consolation brackets. She taught them how to check in at tournaments, how to keep score, call lines, and practice sportsmanship while they played. Terri loved lining up all of the trophies for that tournament on a table so that when people came to register, they could see what was possible. And she insisted on those trophies being awarded only after all play was finished, because she wanted those young players to know what it was like to have a whole group of people applause for their receiving those tournaments, those trophies for their tournament wins. Magnolia Tennis Club hosted the USTA Senior Mixed Doubles League State Championship which was recognized by the Southern team as a tennis event of the year. Over the years, Terri directed and refereed numerous tournaments, including charity tournaments at Magnolia. And she had a knack for scheduling matches before there were computer systems to do that. She loved to be creative with tennis. And one such event that was recognized as an MTA Special Event of the Year was a charity tournament that was held at an area state park. The tournament began with a shotgun start, and the matches were played until the whistle was blown. And all the while around that state park, the families were enjoying softball games and badminton games, paddling in the water lake that was there, and it was a gathering for family to be together, to celebrate tennis, and to raise money for a number of causes. One of the tournaments that she did was a compass draw, and she remembers that one player jokingly said, "How do you get out of this tournament?" Terri wanted to make tennis fun and challenging while maximizing opportunities for players at all levels to be able to keep playing. As a certified teaching pro, Terri served on national and state level pro and officials committees. And she was elected to president of the State Professional Association at a time when interest had waned. Under her leadership, the Mississippi Association of Tennis Pros became the Mississippi Alliance of Tennis Pros. She believed that one word could make a difference in the relationships among the state's pros. Becoming allies for tennis in the state of Mississippi reignited the spirit of the group and bolstered their strength and excitement in promoting tennis in the state. The result was that tennis rallies were held at tennis clubs across the state. Mississippi pros were the guest clinicians there, and greater emphasis was placed on inviting nationally known coaches to the pros workshops during the MTA annual meetings, a practice that continues today. Terri retired from tennis after 40 years of teaching, of playing, of coaching, but she wasn't finished. The next 14 years were spent teaching elementary school students physical education at the oldest public school in Mississippi, Franklin Academy. And to no one's surprise, a ball and a racket were a part of the curriculum. She introduced 4 to 6-year-olds the game with styrofoam paddles and balloons so that they began to practice hand-eye coordination and learn their grips. 7 and 8-year-olds played pickleball so that they could learn simple bounce hit ground strokes. And the 9 to 11-year-olds were bused to the W campus to play on their tennis courts and practice their strokes, to rally, and to play the game on real court. Terri retired from Franklin Academy in 2021, and she has spent these last 2 years with her family. And she spent some of that time caring for both of her parents until their deaths. One parent of a student of Terri's said to her, "You made my child believe they could, even if they couldn't." Terri gave all her players, no matter their age, no matter their ability, courage to believe in themselves and open their hearts to something that they might not otherwise have tried. For Terri Gooch, making a place for all players, regardless of age and level of play, was probably what many would call part of her call. And what else would you expect from somebody whose smile is as big as her heart?
some of what you heard Ann Russell say. Maybe I may be a little repetitive, but I had a student tell me one time that worked for me at Old Waverly. He meant it as a compliment, but what he actually said was, you know, Coach Gooch always tells the truth, because every time she tells the story, she tells it the same way. So I think he was saying I repeated myself. So if she said it and I said it, it must be the truth. Ann Russell told you a little bit about herself. The two words that I would add about her are friend and confidant. She's a special person. She talked about playing tennis, but she's a dynamite Bible study teacher. Her husband, sitting next to her, is Dr. Scott Bradley, and he is a very accomplished tennis player in his own right, traveling now in retirement throughout the South playing tournaments. But when I met them at Magnolia Tennis Club, they quickly became friends and also students of the game, and that's what Scott is, a student of the game. They're now in Hattiesburg. He left Columbus. She has family in Jackson. That's where she grew up. And they're just very special people. So, Ann Russell, thank you for taking the time to come and be a part of this. I want to give a few thank yous before I start talking about some of my folks over there. Jimmy, where are you sitting? There he is. I just wanted to tell you, that's the first time I've met you. And when you called on that Sunday morning to tell me that I had been elected into the Hall of Fame, I was impressed. But your talk at the very beginning, I think you and I are on the same page about a lot of things. You mentioned something that kind of stuck with me. You said there's always one tennis player. And then there's another one. And then there's another one. Well, what I want you to remember is that all of the ones equal the whole. And that's what we are here tonight. We're the whole. We're here together as tennis players trying to accomplish the same thing. And I want to thank all of you for supporting Mississippi Tennis Foundation. Also, I'd like to thank Russell Dendy, the Mississippi Tennis Association Executive Director. He does a fine job, and the MTA's in good shape with him. You did a good job, Russell, leading us through the process after election. So thank you for all of your guidance. I'd also like to thank my family, friends, past players, students, and I have some here in the room, fellow pros. That's been fun to see some of you guys that I haven't seen in a long, long time. And all of you, fans of tennis, I want to thank you for making this night special. And thank you for supporting, again, the young players of Mississippi through Mississippi Tennis Foundation. I think it's interesting that Walker and I are being inducted tonight at the same time, because this is a picture of, I believe, 1974 tennis camp at Ole Miss. This is me as a counselor. This is Walker as a camper. The only thing that's changed is the color of our hair. I can say that because we're right there together. But I do want to congratulate you, Walker, for your successful career and a long time growing tennis players. And I'm honored to be inducted into the Hall of Fame with you tonight. And again, congratulations. Interesting that Ann Russell shared with you that the first time I ever played tennis was in a PE class. We walked, I'd say about 7 or 8 blocks down to the 2 city courts. City courts, they only had 2. In fact, when we played Tupelo when I was in high school, Tupelo didn't think a whole lot of New Albany at that time. Now, New Albany's come a long way, and they're one of the best places you can live in this day and time. But at that time, they were just so sympathetic. Where do you practice your tennis in New Albany? Thinking we didn't have any tennis courts. And I said, we just hit up against the wall at Big Star. But the reason I'm saying that is if you fast forward 53 years from that hike from middle school in New Albany, 7th or 8th grade, to the city courts to be on a tennis court for the very first time in my life, separated by 53 years, the last thing that I did was teach in the elementary school, teach elementary PE. And that's one of the things that we did, is we bussed the kids past the YMCA, where we would pick up some helpers, and we'd go down to the W. And getting those kids on a real tennis court was one of the most fun things in the world. I think it was like going full circle. So 53 years later, here we are, and let's get started. Again, I may be a little repetitive, but I may have a little twist to some things too. When I first started playing tennis, after that initial field trip, and my mom got me a tennis racket with S&H green stamps, I had a choice to make. Am I going to play tennis or am I going to run track? That was the only thing that the school offered. This was pre-Title IX. There weren't a lot of programs for girls at that time. I chose tennis, and couldn't figure out why, as a 9th grader, the very first match that we played was against Tupelo, and all of the other teammates kept saying, "Make Terri play singles, make Terri play singles." I was like, okay, I'll play singles. So we get over to Tupelo, and I found out real quick, the reason they wanted me to play girls singles is they had one of the best girls in the state, Karen Partlow, playing singles, and they didn't want any part of that. This is what I remember about that match. I wasn't real sure. Now, I'd only been playing a couple of months. I wasn't real sure if the score were 15-30-40 or 15-30-45. So once we got to that third point, I just didn't say anything. Second thing I remember is after a ball would get past me, is turning around and pulling it out of the back fence. She hit the ball that hard that if I didn't get to it, it didn't just hit the fence, it was stuck in the fence. Soon I was introduced to tournament tennis, so I kept playing, and the first tournament I ever played in was at Ole Miss in Oxford, right there on top of the hill with the tad pad. Hot, hot, hot in July. My dad was squatting down over there under a shade tree somewhere. I knew I needed water. My mom had used her green stamps again to buy this orange thermos jug. Now, it wasn't the kind of thermos jugs that we carried. I mean, it looked more like picnic and lemonade, than it did a tennis. But that's what I had, and if I wanted water, that's what I used. So I can remember being on that court, and the girl I played was from Jackson. So, she had lessons and this, that, and the other, and I'd only been in Big Star parking lot. So she kept lobbing the ball back, and I'd run over there and smack it back. She'd lob it back, and I'd run over there and smack it back. I didn't figure out that she was taking her time. I was running like a nut all the way across the field. We split sets, and I lost, but I should have. I mean, I've only been playing a couple of months, and that was my first tournament, and there you go. But I can tell you this, if you look at the tournament picture that had all of the players squatting down with their little trophies, my first, it was a black and white picture, but you could still see my red cheeks. I would also like to add that I later avenged that match and beat that girl when we were at the W. She played at Mississippi State. Thank you. We got to the finals in my senior year, and as Ann Russell said, back then tennis was not played by classes. If you're familiar with basketball, you know that you have an A champion and a double A champion and a triple A and a 4A and a 5A, and I don't know how far it goes nowadays, 7 I think. But they take the winners and the runners up and they play in an overall tournament. Well, if you didn't have class tournaments, then that was your state tournament, an overall tournament. So you were playing the big boys, even if you weren't. And so I spent every night of my senior year getting into bed, flipping off the light switch, and saying to myself, okay, I'm pretending like this is the hotel room in Jackson, so I wouldn't be nervous. I was getting every night. Flip, okay, I'm pretending like this is the hotel. Every night, I'm pretending like this. So it was a big deal. I wanted to beat this girl. I had no business beating her. She was she was number 3 in the South. She's from Jackson, Sheila Thomas. Somebody may remember that name, a great player. We were later teammates at the W. But I looked up, when I first walked out on the courts, we were playing at Battlefield Park. And if you remember old Battlefield Park, it had Rubico. I never even heard of Rubico. So I walked out on the court and I started kicking my shoes, trying to get the sand off the bottom of my shoes. It wasn't sand, that was the surface, And so we warmed up and I won the first game. And I heard this cheering from the end where the bleachers were, and I looked down that way, and it was a lot of Tupelo students and fans that had also qualified and were at the tournament, but they came to root on the girl from New Albany that practiced in the parking lot at Big Star. But anyway, she beat me 6-1, 6-1. That's the end of that story. I didn't win the state championship. But I certainly didn't want to. Best summer I ever had was in the 18s, and I was ranked number 1 in girls singles, girls doubles, and adult mixed doubles. I have to tell you about one match from that point, 1 point from that match. I was playing with Russell Blair. Russell was a great player from Oxford and Ole Miss. Bobby Jones used to say when Russell would come to Columbus to play in the tournament, he'd say, he comes, he plays, he wins, he leaves. He comes, he plays, he wins, he leaves. Well, I was playing with Russell. And back in those days, I didn't play a lot of doubles. I was a singles player. But I was playing with Russell, and I was kind of shy, and he was good looking, and it was something. We were playing, I think, in Laurel, and it was match point. We were down, and we had been ranked number 1. So now we're in our 2nd season, and so we're down match point, and I was serving. Well, I knew what Russell was thinking. He was going to take it into his own hands. And he poached. And I ran over and covered that shot down the alley and got it back to Deuce. And I was the one that ended up saving the day. Again, I don't remember anything after that either, but that was... After that match at Battlefield Park, although I was disappointed that I didn't win the state championship, a lady came up to me, a W recruiter, and she offered me a scholarship to play at MUW. Well, I'm a big Ole Miss fan, and I was going to Ole Miss. I already had a roommate. But, again, pre-Title IX, Ole Miss and Mississippi State really didn't have good teams at that time. Didn't really have much of a program. So I made the decision to go to the W, and that was the right decision at that time. Today might be a different decision, but we were playing and winning against Alabama and LSU and UNC and Duke and Florida State and all those matches. And I hate to say it against my team, Ole Miss, but when we played Ole Miss, we beat them 9-0 my freshman year, 9-0 my sophomore year, 9-0 my junior year, and 8-1. We lost 1 match in 4 years. Now we don't even put them on the schedule. But that's what Title IX did, and that's a good thing. But back then, they didn't give money to women's sports so much. So at Mississippi University for women, we got the money and we had the programs. And if you wanted to play a strong competitive program, that's where you went. So I'm proud of it. It was during that time that, like Ann Russell told you about, that we began the tennis camp. And that's always been one of my greatest pleasures, is for somebody to come up. Now, you got to remember, if they were at tennis camp, they were like this. And so when I'd see them, they're like this, and they've grown up. So they've changed, I'd like to think, more than I have. But one of my greatest pleasures, for real, is for someone to come up and remind me that they attended that camp. And I guess part of it is because I know what we put into it. I wanted those kids to go home and have a chance. If they were practicing in the parking lot at Big Star, I wanted them to go home and have a chance to be better and be more successful on their high school team when they got back. And it was important to me that they had to leave with that confidence, that opportunity. So my coaching career actually began at Lee High School in Columbus. Lee High was one of 2 high schools, and they're now consolidated into one, but at that time we had 2. So in that first summer, I was hired by the Park and Rec to work with both teams. They have an advanced group, and because they never had a tennis coach. I was the first tennis coach at Lee High, and one of my fellow graduates was the first coach at Caldwell. But anyway, I was working with them in the summer as an advanced group, and so school started, and somewhere in August we came down here to Jackson to play in a tournament, and I wanted us all to go travel together. So I rented a van. I hadn't even gotten my first paycheck yet, and I rented a van. And I would see somebody. Guess what, Larry? I rented a van. Guess what, Jimmy? I rented a van. I did a bit more than need to spend $400 on a van than a man in the moon. But we were all together, and we were traveling together. We got to Jackson. We played in the tournament. And my recollection is getting to Palm Bridges, which was almost brand new at that time. And we reserved, I'm so proud of myself for knowing you needed to do that. We reserved the back courts behind Palm Bridges. I had gotten the track warm-ups from the other team. So they all had on their maroon and white. We're under the lights, warming up for the matches that would be played the next day. And if you'll think about a fall football game, and if you'll think how the field looks at night, with the light shining and the dew on the grass, it's just a glistening. It's just something special about a night game. That's what it looked like. I went over to the corner, picked up a couple of balls, and when I turned around and saw those kids in their warm-ups, and we were together, and we weren't traveling alone like I did so many times, I thought, this is what I want to do. That was my first team, my first group to go to a tournament. This is what I want to do. I want to give them the opportunity to do what I wish I could have done. So that was a special time to me. I will have to throw in that our biggest achievement during that time at Lehigh was, defeating Tupelo and breaking their 58-0 record. Now, Mitch, you awake? Okay. Your dad, well, first of all, your brother played for me on that team, Mark. And after the end of the season, your dad got the whole tennis team together. Now, tennis, didn't get a lot back then. Got the tennis team together and fed us all at the Western Sizzler. He gave me a plaque. That was our tennis banquet, supported by one man. That was your dad, Mitch. Shortly after that, I was there 2 years, and I went to graduate school and then to Heritage Academy. And Russell talked about the format that we got changed, and I was real proud of that, so I'm glad you mentioned that. Thank you. They still use the same rotation. In other words, if you're a single A winner, you don't want to be in the tournament playing the triple A winner. First of all, you should play a runner-up, and you shouldn't have to play the triple A every time, so it rotates. And that rotation is what is still used today. So I'm pleased with that, because then you've got a chance, equal chance every 3 years. While I was at Heritage, we had a great nucleus of players and parents. We played USTA tournaments. We climbed on the van together, didn't we, Beth? We sure did. We climbed on the van, and we would travel in tournaments, and I was really strict about kids taking responsibility. You had to carry your own thermos jug. Because if your mom carried it for you, and then she set it down, and you say, well, my mom, where's your thermos jug? I don't know, my mom's got it. Mom didn't have it. Then we don't have one. It's cut and dried. You carry your own. So I was kind of strict, I know that. But I let them also be responsible for getting their own playing times. And I think it was Beth who looked at the draw sheet and thought she played at 1. She played at 11. Well, the reason that's kind of crazy is because we were going from one location, probably Cypress, to the country club, I'm not sure. And in between there, on the boulevard, they'd had several traffic stops. People were getting tickets right and left. So I'm driving the van and we're laughing, they got a ticket, they got a ticket. So now I'm trying to get a player to her match on time. 2 hours different from what we thought. Guess who got a ticket? Nothing worse than getting a ticket with a bunch of kids in the car. So I think I went to Greenville courthouse, paid the fine, got my license back. We're at the end of the week. My insurance agent's hearing this. At the end of the week, we're leaving, we're going out of town. Several players had already lost, so we had a changing of the guard. Somebody came and drove the van home so we wouldn't have to pay the rental and left me their station wagon. So we go through the trap. I get pulled over. I knew I wasn't speeding. So I got out of the car so the kids couldn't hear me talk to the officer. And he said, I'm not writing you a ticket for speeding. I'm writing you a ticket because your license expired. I said, am I responsible for it if it's not my car? And he said, if you can prove that the decal has been purchased before today. So we stopped at the next payphone before cell phones, and she had bought it, just didn't. My husband told me to put that on there, but she didn't. And so I lost my license twice in 1 week. I have to tell you another heritage story because you got to know these people. I love them. But Randy Edmondson's sitting right over there. And he was one of our best players. And I think we were leaving at 1 o'clock to go to a match. And it was a pretty tough match. And I said, I'm driving the van. We graduated to the bus now. I said, I'm putting it in gear at 1 o'clock. Well, as strict as I was, I didn't have a choice. I mean, the bus could have been empty, and I'm putting it in gear at 1 o'clock. But Randy's the only one not there, and he was one of our key players. So I did. 1 o'clock, I put it in gear. Neutral. There's a little incline there at Heritage. So we're rolling down the drive. It's probably almost the length of the football field. Just about to make the turn to go down to the elementary school. Every head on that bus is turned around watching for Randy. Randy pulls up. He comes running as fast as he can. So I open the bus door. He jumps up on the steps of the bus, looks at me and says, "Hey, Coach, why'd you park way down here?" From Heritage, I went back to coach the W team, and Russell shared with you that we had an undefeated season, and I'm very proud of that. And that was a good experience. I feel very, very humbled to have been able to return back to my alma mater. During that time is when I got certified by the USPTA, the PTR. So in the summers I taught I was a tennis pro at Old Waverly Golf Country Club. And I discovered then that I really did like teaching better than I thought. In addition to coaching, they're different. They're different. So that's when I became the first full-time pro at Magnolia. And she went over some of our accolades at that time. One of the best things I've ever done, every time I would read a book about tennis and management and how to run a program, those are the things that we did at Magnolia, and I'm really proud of. But what I was really, really lucky to do is have a great board. People like Juddy Boyd, Ed Edmondson, Bobby Jones, Jake Probst, 3 of the 4 are in the Hall of Fame. Bobby Deal, Bill Brigham. We had a great board. I had a great club manager, Pat Wheeler. A lot of you remember Pat. Pat passed away a couple of years ago. So we were very active at that time in MTA committees and this, that, and the other. A lot of you may remember playing in the Mississippi Senior Adult Tournament. That was a really first-class tournament. My favorites, though, were Organization of the Year and the 2000 USPTA Southern High School Coach of the Year. Very special. Magnolia Tennis Club is a special place. Billy Gibbs here somewhere. Billy Gibbs doing a great job of continuing that work at the tennis club, and I'm glad, Billy Gibbs. Thank you. I just got a couple more stories I have to tell. During that time, I got certified as a national school clinician. Now, you tennis pros need to pay attention because this is a neat trick. You want to try to draw kids in. So I started out with a tennis ball, cut it, put white flour in it, lightly glue it back together, get an empty tennis can with the top on it, and if you take an empty can with the top on it, no balls, and you squeeze it real hard, it's going to make a pretty good booming noise, such. Well, if you take your tennis racket, throw it up, and you hit it, that's had flour in it, it looks like smoke. So I talked to the kids and talked about serving, and we started at the net, and we just tapped the ball over, and then we moved to the service line, and we had a longer follow-through, went to the baseline. Now cover up your ears, we would say, because it may be loud, it may hurt your ears. And we'd have the whole swing, the whole everything, hit the tennis. You got to have a good partner to coordinate the contact point with the smoke and the boom of the tennis can, and it does sound like it. Ah! Dave Randall just had a great idea. His light bulb just went off. I bet he'll have a smoking ball before long. And Russell also shared with you that I enjoy creative tennis in addition to competitiveness. I mean, I'm competitive, but another great idea is a one-point singles tournament. Doesn't matter if you're a junior or an adult or a male or a female, put them all in the same draw. Go out on the court, and whoever's matched up first, spin the racket, they play 1 point. They advance. Go all the way down. Next round, keep going, 1 point, 1 point, 1 point. And you'd be surprised how, a lady can beat a man, a junior can beat it. But that 1 point singles tournament, the secret of it is we did it as a fundraiser. And you only pay for every round that you win, $5 per round. So if you're winning, you don't mind paying. But if you lost, you didn't lose anything. You only got to play 1 point. But the 1 point tennis, 1 point singles tournament is a great event to put that on your list. She mentioned the compass draw, and she talked about the lady that said, "How do you get out of this tournament?" Well, what happens is, if you're running a tournament, and winners move to the right, we're going to say that's east, and losers go to consolation, we're going to say that's west. But if you win one and move east, you keep going. But if you win and move east, and then you lose, you go north. Another bracket. You lose again, you go northwest. You keep winning, and you go. If you get out here in the main draw, and you lost in the third round, now you go northeast. Same thing with the players that have lost and gone to consolation. If you lose again, you're going south. If you won one in consolation and then you lose, you go southwest. You get the idea. One tournament turns into 8. So therefore, the lady said, "How do you get out of this tournament?" One of the things that Ann Russell was also talking about with the tournament that we had the shotgun start and you played for an hour. The reason for that was so that families could predict how long they were going to be on the court. If you split sets, you may be out there 3 hours or so. But if you were only going to be there for an hour, what we did is we counted total number of games. So it may be 22-6. You just count games, all right? But what we did is you were able to go over here and play the softball game with your children. Go over here and play badminton with your children. Play horseshoes with your children. But you knew that you were going to play again in an hour. Play an hour, off an hour. Play an hour, off an hour. And keep up with the game. So that was one of the things that made it so much fun. And it was a Bethany Christian Services charity, pro-life. So we wanted to make family a big part of that. Tennis has been my life. It's been my identity. You know how you know? Because you get tennis balls for Christmas and your birthday. And tennis has been my joy. In fact, I think every child should have to take tennis or golf in school, a lifelong sport. But back to that first tournament, warming up at Palm Bridges, I think my tennis life has been about giving others the skills to be successful and teaching responsibility through being a part of a team, through following rules, through respecting others and sportsmanship. So I want to read you one of my favorite sayings. Sometimes if the kids weren't just right, they had to memorize this. But it's funny. Winning is fun. Sure. Winning is fun. Sure. But winning's not the point. Wanting to win is the point. Not giving up is the point. Never letting up is the point. Never letting anyone down is the point. The game is never over, no matter what the scoreboard reads or what the referee says. It doesn't end when you come off the court. The secret of the game is in doing your best. And I tried to give students the skills to do and live those things. I have many people to thank for all the opportunities that have been given to me, firstly with my parents, Mary and Leon Gooch, who passed away in 24 and 25. My sister Trennis, who followed me to tournaments carrying the orange thermos jug. And questioning, well, if you beat her, why didn't you just beat her 6-0, 6-0? And my brother Trent, who carried on after me, becoming W.P. Daniel, most valuable player, and using my old wooden Davis racket. And my niece, Melly, who appreciates family history and our accomplishments. To all of you here, thank you for making my Hall of Fame induction a special night. It's truly an honor to know all of you and to be a part of Mississippi tennis. Thank you.
You know, you can hear the passion in the sport, you can hear the passion, the care. I just think about sometimes you can just one ball, somebody hitting just one ball, and how much passion, energy goes to that ball, and how much that kid that didn't believe, who now believes, and it's people like Terri that got him to that point. And just quickly, just to speak on another note, Ellen Langford's picture will be auctioned at the end of the silent auction. So it'll be a little separate deal. And the silent auction will be closing soon, within the next 10 minutes and so forth. Okay. So we're going to move on. And we're going to have another presenter come up. And he's going to present our next inductee as well. And it's going to be Devin Britton. And Devin's legend in himself. So I'll let Devin come up and share some of those things regarding Walker. And Devin's accomplished many, many things. I probably let him tell about all that, but we won't go there because we know it's not Devin's night tonight, it's Walker's night. Devin will definitely have a chance. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm fired up to be here tonight to celebrate Walker, get the opportunity to introduce her. Walker's taught me so much in my life, but public speaking was not one of those things. Bear with me here. I'm not going to talk about all of Walker's accomplishments over her 55-year career because we don't have time. That would take all night to get through. But, you know, from coaching Grand Slam champions and Monica Seles and All-Americans, particularly here from Mississippi, placing players all over the SEC and across the country, you know, her resume kind of speaks for itself. I think she's presented at every USTA, USPTA, RSPA, USPTR. You know, you think of the acronym, she's done it. She's really got an incredible resume as a coach. And I've only been around for a portion of it. I mean, I'm 34 years old, so I wasn't even there from the start. But I love Walker, and I'm so happy to be here to celebrate her tonight. I want to focus on why I believe that Walker is a world-class tennis coach. From my own experience, I personally had the opportunity to work with so many great tennis coaches in my career, from Nick Bollettieri to Patrick McEnroe to Brad Gilbert, to some really great names in tennis. And there's always been something just really special about Walker that I always went back to. You know, I was always comparing them against her. And none of them really lived up to the hype. They were all great in their own respect, but they weren't Walker. And so I can't say enough good about her. And you know, if you've ever been on the court with Walker in a practice, you know, I've been through many sessions. You know, she's always bringing a lesson and always bringing a game plan to the table. And the level of professionalism, it's really hard to put into words, but it's something that it's a level of passion for the game of tennis that I didn't see many places. And I was around a lot of passionate tennis people. But she was always there. She was always imparting knowledge upon us. And we're 10, 11, 12-year-old kids with really, you know, how much hope did we have in Mississippi? I don't know. You know? But she forced us to believe in bigger things. She forced us to see the bigger picture. And she really pushed us day in and day out. You know, it wasn't always this fun experience. It wasn't always laughs and giggles out there, but it was about something bigger. It was about giving us a base, kind of a platform to grow from and to grow into. You know, I always talk about Walker's ability to teach the technical side of the game. I mean, she's been a student of the game forever, but I don't know many people technically that can do what she does for young people. You know, I was always jealous of Carrie Wong. I don't know if any of y'all saw Carrie play, but it was just beautiful to watch. You know, Walker got a hold of Carrie earlier than she got a hold of me, so I was always jealous because Carrie's game was just flawless. And, you know, I was always struggling with my forehand or whatever. But, you know, I've been given a tall task here tonight because it's 55 years of work that Walker's put in day and day out, and I gotta try to squeeze that into 10 minutes. You know, it's a losing prospect for me, but I'm gonna do my best to give you just a little more information. You know, the concepts that Walker would bring to practice, you know, it may take you a day or two to understand. You may get it quick, but it might take you years. You know, it might be 3 years later and you're like, man, I got it. I figured it out. But she was always just feeding us this information that was invaluable. And, you know, the movement piece for me was where I think was the most stubborn. I think that probably took me 10 years to figure out. But, you know, I blame it on the fact that my head and my feet are so far apart that it just took a long time to get down there. Yeah, I mean, as tennis players, we don't do a good enough job of celebrating our coaches. You know, we are self-centered in some regard. People are clapping for us, and we get to take all the praise. And I'm just so excited to get the opportunity to celebrate Walker for once. And I really don't know what's taken me so long to get to this point. We should have celebrated you a long time ago. You know, one of Walker's great skills is identifying in young people what strengths they need to have to be successful. You know, what's your weapon going to be? And Walker identified in me pretty early the serve. She knew I could throw a ball pretty good. It was something she could work with. And she was able to craft a real weapon and give me the skills necessary to be successful with my serve. And I must have won hundreds of tennis matches based on the ability to get some free points on my serve. And I never thought to call Walker. Say thank you. Thank you for that. I remember playing in the NCAA tournament. I was in the finals playing against a guy from Ohio State. And I got an early break in the third set. And I was up, I think 2-1, or maybe it was 3-1. And I didn't have any legs left in me. I was toast. It had been a long few weeks of matches, and I remember talking to Coach Billy Chadwick on the bench, and he told me, you know, let's not put too much into these return games. Let's, you know, let them have those. You can serve this thing out. And I did eventually. I probably got 2 free points a game and made my life easy. But I realized that I wouldn't have experienced these great moments in tennis without Walker giving me the skill set to do so. You know, from U.S. Open Juniors and making the finals of U.S. Open Juniors to the NCAA tournament to eventually getting to play Roger Federer on the biggest stadium in tennis. You know, that's really all credit to Walker. And so I'm sorry that it's taken me so long to just say thank you for that, because it's really special. You know, in my professional career, I kind of limped along for a little while. I'd come back to Walker and Ray every once in a while, wherever they were at the time, and you know, I'd be like, I can't figure this out. I can't figure the serve out. And an hour later, Walker's got me right again. She's done surgery on me. And you know, I thought, man, if I was really smart, I would convince Walker and Ray to come on the tour with me. That way I couldn't get lost all these times. But I realized that I could never afford to feed Ray. That's a big job. But yeah, I'm ultimately just grateful to Walker for giving me a chance, for just spending countless hours just imparting wisdom wisdom after wisdom after wisdom. It was just, I wish I'd taken more notes, really. But, I really want to just take the chance to say thank you. I love you. I really do. Walker's my godmother, if that tells you anything about what my parents think about her. I'm so happy for you, and I'm just excited to be here to celebrate you, give you a warm welcome here tonight. So without further ado, just please help me in welcoming Walker.
Just a quick note I wanted to say about Walker and her husband. It's amazing, but like I was saying, you've touched so many, and how you all touched so many. And I didn't play under you or have the opportunity to be coached, what have you, but I used to see you and your husband work on bridges. And I saw the passion and the energy that you all put into the players, and the dedication, the professionalism. And I would just watch, and I was like, oh, that discipline. And it was like on time. So I just want to share that. But you do touch me. You did.
Thank you. Well, how awesome is that to get introduced by your godson? And not only that, but he asked us to be his godparents. I mean, how do you say no? So, Devin, who is the youngest player ever to win the NCAA, is the only person to beat John McEnroe's record. U.S. Open finalist, Eddie Herr finalist. If we could just get rid of that pesky Dimitrov, we would be in business. Wimbledon semifinalist. Played Junior Davis Cup. I would walk him to the airport because he was too young. I had to walk him down the whole airport. It was like carrying my body cart behind me. I mean, he's like this tall, and I'm carrying him down because he's too young to walk to the airplane by himself. And then had the opportunity of being the Davis Cup hitting partner with an incredible team, and I still can't believe with the Bryans and everybody else, you were the tallest guy on the team. That's unbelievable. So you know that not only is that important to us, but more importantly, you've become such a fine father, husband, and man. That is more important, and we love you dearly. I would also like to congratulate Terri, and I don't know where she got this picture, but she thought I didn't remember. And I'll tell you what I do remember about that camp, is at the end, the last couple of days, the pros who were teaching the camp invited me to be the fourth on their court and play doubles with them. And I considered it a great honor. And I really was stunned that they asked me, but I really appreciated it. And not only that, but then Terri hit with me personally and rallied with me with the joy that I'm sure she's done with everyone else here. And it really meant a lot. So I remember well, and it is such an honor to be sharing this night with somebody who has dealt everything with such integrity and professionalism and honor. So congratulations, Terri. My father was born in Oxford, Mississippi in 1911. Wow. There was not a paved road in all of Oxford And William Faulkner was my dad's scoutmaster. But Dean, the youngest brother, was actually closer to his age. And my dad was hanging out with my family once when he's around in his 60s. And they needed a fourth to play doubles. And they said, come on. Nobody in my family thought he knew how to play. Never heard him was going to play. He came out and they were stunned that he was actually very tough to compete against. And he used verbiage that came out of Bill Tilden's era. He had dinks and hacks and chops, and he was giving them fits. And they came home telling me this story. And as a kid, of course, I rolled my eyes like, yeah, right. And he said, no, I used to play with Dean Faulkner, William Faulkner's youngest brother. And in Oxford, we would have courts, you would just lay it out in your backyard, and we would go out and play. And then we went to Holly Springs and played some tournaments in Holly Springs. I'm like, yeah, right. Until I read Dean's daughter's book, which is one of my favorite books on Oxford, Every Day by the Sun. And she describes Dean going to Holly Springs and playing tennis tournaments. So a picture of what tennis looked like 100 years ago in the state of Mississippi. And you can only imagine what it's going to look like in 100 years. I well remember the first lesson. My mother signed me and my dear friend down the street, Jean Tatum, to some little junior camp that was held on the Ole Miss tennis courts. Now this is my mother, who I love dearly, but we could not be two polar opposites. My mother came out of the house looking spectacular every single day of her life. She modeled for St. John's Knits. Was gorgeous. I came out of the house looking for the first dirt pile to play. So she is driving me to this tennis lesson. And this is her description of why I wanted to learn how to play tennis. If you learn to play tennis, the boys will invite you to their clubs. And you can lose to them and they'll invite you back. At which point tennis went way down in my concept of a sport. However, I continued to take lessons from Russell Blair, Peter Marks, and continued to enjoy the sport. And my parents started, got a place on Amelia Island Plantation. And on Amelia, the first pro there was a gentleman by the name of John Hollis. He'd come up from St. Pete. He was Bill Tilden's ball boy as a little boy, traveled with Tilden. And when Tilden would get mad at him, Henri Cochet would help him. So I had the opportunity to learn the history of the game firsthand from somebody who lived it. I remember him showing me his grass court cleats, spikes, that they used at Wimbledon before World War II. And his description of what Bill Tilden, what Pancho Segura had envisioned where the game was going was exactly Jimmy Connor's game. They saw it as being an on-the-rise flat ball hitter. Of course, they couldn't envision what happened with the strings and the rackets and everything else going forward, but he was the prototype of how they perceived the game. So I had opportunity after opportunity that no one could ever believe. For some small town kid from Oxford, Mississippi, but by the hand of God. There is no other way to describe what all started to occur. Played college tennis at Colorado College, played volleyball and tennis, lettered in both. And then transferred to University of Florida because I was in historic preservation and restoration in their architecture school. And I was so dedicated, and I was staying up all night, pulling all-nighters every single night, and wanting to be the best. And I got to the point where I was totally exhausted and just on the point of a total breakdown. So I started to pull out of school. But I had to finish off a couple of classes. And this one girl in my class goes, I really want you to come coach this high school tennis team. I went, no. Absolutely not. But she wouldn't stop. She kept saying, please, look, all you have to do is just show up for the matches. And I was kind of overweight, out of shape, had been pulling all-nighters, and I'm like, okay, I'll only show up for the matches, and I get to go hit on their ball machine so I can get back in shape. And my therapy for trying to emotionally and physically recover really started with that. In Gainesville at the time, it was amazing. We had Shelby Cannon, who won U.S. Open mixed doubles, John and Ed Ross, Andy Solis, whose dad was my concrete professor, and some very good girls, with Nicole Stafford, Sean Stafford's older sister. Great group of players coming out of Gainesville at the time. And then I spent the summer on Amelia kind of still rehabbing. And at the end of the summer, I look in Tennis Magazine, and there's these advertisements that I could go to Hilton Head and take this week-long course to learn how to be a tennis pro. Now, Hilton Head and Amelia Island were jointly owned. And I'd always heard so many stories about Hilton Head, and I always wanted to go there. So my theory was I could get my parents to fund my trip to Hilton Head for the week if I told them I wanted to go take this class. And they went, okay. So off I go on my vacation. And I have to say, it was the most professional, meaningful camp. It used to be a week long. And the things I learned there and learned from Dennis have carried me throughout my entire career. One of the great things that helped me is the fact that Dennis always taught in progressions. I think in progressions. So it equipped me with a way to teach in the way I think. Finished off some school, and I was going to go to work for Vandermeer in the summer of 83 and teach in their summer camp. But I'm sitting on Amelia with nothing to do until then. And they call me in January. And they say, could you come to work now? Sure, I'll be there in 3 hours. They said, we would like you to start and come now as director of the PTR. My first full-time job in tennis is starting as the director of the PTR. They said, person who's the director, Jill Cox and her husband, have to go back to South Africa to get their visas renewed, and we're not sure if they're going to be able to get back in the country. So could you come now as the director? I mean, like, who can explain these opportunities? So I start, fortunately, after a couple of months, they did get back into the country, and I got to get back onto the court, which I much preferred. And that summer, at summertime, Dennis would always take his camps to Sweetbriar, Virginia, and that's where he would do the junior camps. So we pack up to go to Sweetbriar. And at the beginning, the high performance part was done by Coach Jim Burdick, who is the winningest college coach of all time. So they read off the list of the coaches who are going to be with Coach Burdick for the whole summer. And then the ones who are not, and are going to be working with the Boo-Boos. And my name was not on the high performance list. And I'm like, oh, no, this is not good. And so I'm sitting there with all the guys, because I'm always the only girl, but it's great because you always get your own room. So, and I'm going, what they should do is let each one of us rotate 1 week so we can spend time with Coach Burdick and learn from him. All the guys are like, yeah, that's a good idea. I said, well, let's all go talk to him. And they went, you know what, you go talk to him and tell him this. Okay. So I went to Coach Burdick and I laid down my proposal. And he looked at me and he said, okay, but only you. That was a life lesson. I thought, okay, I've learned something. Then later that summer, there was another guy who came along. His name was Dr. James E. Lair, Jim Lair. Sports psychology was just starting, and it was starting to gain traction, and it was because of Jim Lair. And he had started a product with Dennis called the Tennis University 2, where he taught mental toughness. And I'd been hearing about this, but I didn't believe one word he had to say. I thought it was all hocus pocus, but I wanted to be educated, and this was a hot topic. So I volunteered to work his camp also, which meant that I was teaching all morning, and then all the way through lunch for Jim, all afternoon for Dennis, all evening for Jim, and I was stringing all the rackets, and I had to drive into Lynchburg, Virginia to string the rackets and come back. I was doing the photography, so I do have major sympathy, and doing all the certificates. These guys are looking at me like, and they're going to tell me, you're an idiot. You're not getting paid anything for that, you know that, right? I was like, okay, no, that's all right. The first day, he's saying all this stuff, and I'm taking notes, but I'm thinking, this doesn't work. The second day, I'm watching these players, and I see skills that had major mechanical flaws. All of a sudden, these flaws started to melt away. And he never discussed technique. Like, how is this possible? These would have taken years to try and fix these problems. And they were just starting to go away by the focus, the relaxation, the timing. And I'm thinking, wow, that is so crazy. But I'm hitting in the drills too, and now I'm starting to hit better. The third day, after the clinic's over, I go out to hit with one of the better guys that is in our teaching pros. Big guy, good college player. I'm knocking him off the court. And I'm in the zone, and he is getting so mad. At which point, I understood how much I believed in what Jim Lair had to say. And after that, I worked on and off for Jim for 12 years, did a lot of his research, proofread his manuscripts, did so much with Jim. But I always appreciate the fact that I didn't believe what he had to say. And he proved me wrong, is why I'm his biggest fan. And I call him one of my big brothers. I'm like, Jim, I've adopted you. You can't get rid of me. So after that, I go to work at Glenarvan Country Club, which Rob here would know well as director of tennis. And in the spring, they always have a tournament on Amelia Island. The WTA Championships comes right after Family Circle. And so I knew that the WTA Championships were coming up. I was going to go home to watch the matches. And in going home to watch the matches, I know that Betsy Nagelson is going to be playing, and she's one of Jim Lair's students. So I called Jim and I say, hey, what if I just go videotape her matches for you? It would help you out, and I'd love to do that for you. And he went, oh, great. So now I go down to Betsy when she gets to the tournament, and she's out hitting with her doubles partner, Martina Navratilova. And I walk out on the court, and I'm like, Jim's asked me to do this. And he said, oh, great. So I am now on court with Martina and Betsy, who've won Australian Open doubles. And then I videotaped their night match. When I finished videotaping the night match, I had a date that night. He had come over from Gainesville, and he was, I got him, passed for the matches, and then we were going to go out afterwards. Well, as I'm walking past the match, Betsy at the time is dating Mark McCormick. Mark McCormick of IMG, who at the time Sports Illustrated had just listed as the second most powerful man in sports behind Phil Knight of Nike. Mark McCormick, if you don't really appreciate IMG, they manage the Nobel Peace Prize. They manage the Ford Modeling Agency. They manage Wimbledon. They manage the Indianapolis 500. They have offices in over 150 countries worldwide. He stops me as I'm walking by and asks me to sit down. And the first question he asks me is, what would you do if you were coaching Betsy? And these questions went on and on and on. It was the toughest interview I've ever had in my entire life. And he never showed you how he was going to feel about it. You had to come up with your own answers. So my date, remember the date? Yeah. He's strolling around trying to look like he's going to entertain himself. So he starts walking around the facility and he circles back and I'm still talking to Mark McCormick. So he takes a second lap around and it's just a little shorter lap. And he comes back and I'm still talking to Mark McCormick. And there's no way I'm leaving talking to Mark McCormick if he wants to talk to me. So the third time he takes an even shorter lap and then he just gets ticked off, sits down and plops down next to us. Can I just say that date did not go well? So now I've had the opportunity to be with Mark, get to know him. And then later that year, Jim Lair calls me again. And he says, hey, I've got a job for you. And I said, okay. I really would like you to come coach this player that I'm working with. She'll live in her house, travel with her, and I think if you'll help organize her life, it would make a huge difference for her. I said, okay. So I go to coach Bonnie Gaduzic, who at the time is 15 in the world. So my first coaching job on the tour is a player who's 15 in the world. I go down to the Bardmore, which is where Harry Hopman is the coach. That's his camp. So I'm sitting there, I'm having the opportunity the last year of his life to watch Harry Hopman coach. And if you ever think someone gives tough feeds, you have not seen Harry Hopman. The first feed is in the side fence over here. The next feed is in the side fence over there. The next one's against the fence, and the next one's up here. And if you don't run for it, you're off his court. And if you run to show that you could touch the ball, you were off his court. You only ran for the purpose of showing you intended to make it. So I'm with Bonnie. The first tournament we go across the state of Florida, over to Miami, to Key Biscayne. And this was not the tournament that you're thinking about, but it was at the Sonesta Resort. Patricio Ape was the pro there at the time. And in the third round, I think Bonnie plays Chris Everett. So now I'm on court, I'm coaching Chris Everett against Chris Everett. In the first tournament, I'm coaching. She plays well, but loses. And then we go across the state of Florida to Marco Island. It's the first year they're going to have the tournament on Marco Island. Bonnie's, I think, #1 seed. Third round, she's playing this girl who's like 14 years old. First year on the tour. But this girl, you could tell, she was tough. She was very, very smart, very clever. And when Bonnie would start doing some pattern against her, within a couple of games, the players started using it back against Bonnie. And she was learning, she was like almost a cyborg. She was learning and picking it up and coming back with whatever. I was happy that Bonnie got out of that match fairly quickly. The player was Gabriella Sabatini. So she gets to the finals, and in the finals, she's playing Pam Casale, and this is going to be on national TV. So Billie Jean is commentating. So here's my, hero growing up because I love her style of play and her intensity. She's up in the commentating booth. I'm sitting on the sideline right along the baseline. And Bonnie is playing pretty well, and then she gets a couple of line calls she doesn't like. She turns around and starts spitting at the linesman on national TV. I'm like, oh Lord, this is not good. Luigi's up there. This is not good. So then she starts to get behind. And now she's really ticked off. So Bonnie, now this is when coaching was illegal, right? And they would really bust you for it. She walks up to me and stares me straight in the face on national TV and goes, "What? What do you want me to do?" I'm like diving under the stands going, oh God. Welcome to the tour. So she won the tournament. We go back across the state of Florida to Del Rey. And there's a brand new tournament, 1985, brand new tournament that has just started. It's going to be the 5th Grand Slam because they're the next tournament that has now added men and women together at the same event. You know it as the Miami Open, but at the time it was called the Lipton. And it was the very first year of it. So we're there, and third round she has this 13, 14-year-old local girl. It's going to be on grandstand court. The girl, her entire school lets out for her to come fill the stands of screaming 13 and 14-year-old girls. As Bonnie walks out the match, she comes out and she says, "Can you have my coach stand up?" I've never seen that before. Have you ever seen somebody walk? Okay. She knew I was the only person in the entire stands that was cheering for her. She wanted to know where the heck I was. My mom is watching this on TV, but they're only showing the stadium court. But she can hear the cheers, and they're explaining it's this match. So Bonnie's playing well, but this kid is playing really out of her mind. And they get to a tiebreaker in the first set. And Bonnie's playing smart, high percentage, but she's the seeded player. She's got to play smart, play solid, and this kid's going to crack and make some stupid mistakes. She didn't. She's just treating. And she's hitting every shot and it's going in. So Bonnie loses the first set in a breaker, but you're like, okay, this kid's going to think about it somewhere down the stretch, and Bonnie's going to get it. They get to another tiebreaker. Kid plays out of her ever-loving mind. Now, before this match started, she had played one of my former students in a national tournament. And I told Bonnie before the match started, I want you to get some revenge. I want you to kick this girl's butt. Bonnie loses the match. It was this young girl named Mary Jo Fernandez. And Mary Jo and I have laughed about it. But now I'm devastated. I'm just crushed. I told her it was personal. I wanted her to beat her for me. And I didn't have anything to say. I mean, I was crushed. Fortunately, Jim Lear happened to be there that day, and he took her off and talked with her. And that's when I realized I couldn't take her match as being my personal match. Because if I did, I couldn't go out and do my job. It was a good life lesson for me as far as coaching like that. So I spent the rest of that decade pretty much coaching and traveling with players on the tour. Until I had a friend who called and said, "Hey, I got a job for you. And we'd love for you to come down to Miami and work for Francisco, Montana, and run his summer camp and run his camps here." So I went down to Miami, and it was actually the players that we had in just the after-school group was pretty phenomenal. You had Francisco Montana Jr., Kiko, who you played. It was right before his freshman year in college, so I'm helping him. He ended up getting season-ending championships on the ATP Tour and doubles, and ended up coaching Marty Fish. So we had Kiko, we had almost everybody in that group ended up winning a gold ball. Paige Yarshuk, who's the long-term coach for Miami, would show up and play in this junior group. So it was a phenomenal group. You had New York, Bettina Bungie would come by and hit on the courts when she was in town. I mean, it was really good. And Jim Lair calls me. He says, "I have a job for you." And I went, "Jim, every time you talk to me, you get me in trouble." And I hung up on him. But he was really smart. He had called my mother first because he needed to get my number. So my mother calls right after and she says, "Did you talk to Jim? Did you talk to Jim?" I said, "Yeah, I hung up on him." She went, "You did what? You know he had your best interest in talk. You call him right back." "Yes, ma'am." So I called Jim back and he said, no, I really have this job here at Volunteers. And I already knew Nick's reputation. And I'm thinking, I don't think I really want to go work there. But he said, come interview. So I was actually going home right then because it was my 30th birthday, so I had planned a vacation. So my 30th birthday, I go across Florida and interview at Volunteers and end up taking the job. Well, what I don't know is there was another guy who had started a year earlier at Volunteers. And they kept telling him he was going to have to come off the court and take that job. And he said, no, I don't want that job. And they said, no, you got to come take this job. And he went, no, I don't want that job. Well, he had gone on vacation when I went and interviewed. But that was the job that Ray didn't want. So that's how we met, is I took the job he didn't want. And I always kid that he married me so he wouldn't have to take the job. But what a job. What an incredible opportunity. So Jim Lair's theory, I came in because Jim obviously wasn't going to spend the time with the kids every day. But he thought that how do you teach mental toughness to kids who've been in a classroom all day long and keep them captured, keep them engaged? First of all, they want to see one of two things, either themselves or their heroes. So on the video, I would do video of either them or their heroes. And then you put it to a mood enhancer, music. And what was popular at the time? Music videos. So I'm teaching from music videos in a classroom setting. And I have the freedom to then start to choose technical, tactical, mental, and every week I'm giving all these presentations. But my first day of work, I almost got fired. So Paul Kildary's dad calls me and Rob goes, look, I'm so excited you're there, and you know what we've been working on with Paul. And if you don't know Paul, he's now head of professional coaching for Australia. He's been heading the Hopman Cup and everything else. But he was a kid, and he said, would you please go out and check on my son? This is what we're working on. You know what we're working on with his forehand. Please, can you go see, because he needs a little help. I am thinking, I am now going to contribute my first day of work in a meaningful fashion at this very impressive place. So I am really stoked. I'm going to help. Nick sees me out there, and he goes to Gabe, and he goes, who is that? And we'll fire right now. Gabe's like, no, wait. Because Nick is always going to be very guarding and jealous if he sees anybody working with one of his players nervous that they're going to steal. So he perceived me day one as, you ready to go. Fortunately, Gabe saved my life and said, look, you can help more of the kids here than anybody else as long as you do it in that classroom. Because Nick never goes in the classroom and he will not see you. And I said, okay. So in the classroom I go, and I'm doing my job description. I could show up every day at work and know nobody else in the world had my job. So I'm teaching these skill sets. Not only that, but any day of the week that Nick was there would be at least 5 media different outlets there. So they had to go through me, which is how I ended up being on TV, because what I was doing was so unique in the classroom. When they were doing a project on Nick, I would end up on FR3 during the French Open, or during Australia 60 Minutes during the Australian Open, or WTA Magazine during the US Open. So I would end up on all these shows all the time because they saw it as something very unique that I was doing. Nice little side story. Then the one thing was that everybody who had an idea that they thought they could make money off of in tennis, they think that if I just send it to Nick and I get Nick's approval, I can make $1 million. Well, they know Nick is going to get his money up front, but that's okay. That's another matter. It all had to go through me. I was the gatekeeper. So every concept, every idea, every new toy that comes down the pike is going through me. And of course, what's the first thing I do? I take it home to Ray. We're out there playing with it, going, I don't know, what do you think? And trying out everything. What an education. And every single day at the academy, if you can envision putting that kind of money, that kind of egos, that kind of rankings, and those parents, put them out in the hot sun all day long and have them compete, every day was a story. Every day was a story. You just didn't want to be the story. So one day Nick comes to me and goes, hey, I want you to go to New York with me. I want you to videotape this kid. I want you to do a college video. He wants to go to college. And this was one of the big money donors for the Academy, the Horowitzes. So I'm like, okay. So I pick up, now you have to picture this. This is the days when, you have the VHS, the big cameras like this. So I'm out there. It is a crap camera, okay? I'm going to New York to film this kid with this crap camera, all right, for a college video. So it's Fritz and Nick and myself, and we fly up to New York. Now, on that same day, any day that Nick had one of his girlfriends in town, Ray and all the guys always knew it was one of Nick's girlfriends, because they all look the same. They all show up, and he sent them into the pro shop. They decked themselves out and everything. And so she's playing in his adult program that day. I mean, this girl was like unmistakable, right? Just every single time. So I'm flying off to New York with Nick and Fritz. We get off the plane. The driver comes and picks us up. I will never forget. We go, the kid wasn't out of school yet, so we go to this little cafe right off of Central Park with the mother of this kid. And Nick and Fritz and his mom are sitting there talking about facelifts. And I'm just going, this is so crazy. So then finally we go out, the mom leaves, we go off to pick up the kid. So the driver takes us to pick up the kid. He's going to school at one of the elite schools. John Lennon's son is going there. We pick him up, and now the kid starts demanding this is driver triple parks in New York City, so that he wants the driver to run in and get him a McDonald's hamburger. And the driver's like, no, you don't understand. If I get a ticket, triple parking, you don't understand what that's going to do to my driver's license, the price of it. And the kid just keeps demanding. So finally the driver has to stop, triple park, run into McDonald's to get a McDonald's hamburger for this kid. So we go down to Wall Street. And I don't know, have you ever played on the courts at Wall Street? Okay, so there was a club. And it was right on the edge of the water. But the courts were on barges that went out into the water. And there were 2 banks of barges, and the courts were laid end to end like this. So you go out and you can feel the court move, and they're clay courts out on these barges. So we go out on these barges, and I go out with my camera. We're on the back, the very back one. And Fritz is feeding balls, and they're warming up. And then, he feeds a couple hours. I start filming, and about 15 minutes, the kid goes, "That's it, I'm done," and walks. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And I'm looking at Fritz, I'm going, first of all, the kid never hit a ball in the court. He was so bad. He couldn't hit it anywhere near the court. He was missing everything. I'm thinking, what the heck am I going to put on this video? I mean, I'm going, Fritz, I'm not done. He goes, and I'm going, oh, Lord. So, I mean, there's so many things wrong with this. So then they drive us back to the apartment. So we go up, the apartment looks right over the park. They own the whole floor. All right, it has a private elevator, it just stops on their floor. And we get out, the artwork, the original artwork in this apartment was off the charts. And I'm walking by going, what the heck? And we get back and we're waiting for the dad to come home from Wall Street. So they send us back to the TV room. Over the couch in the TV room, Fritz points at this one painting and goes, oh, this one's so freaky. This one always bothers me. It is an original Moreau that I swear is in my textbooks. And I'm looking at this, and this is over the couch in their TV room. All right, so, and I'll never forget the day because what they had on TV was the Anita Hill, Clarence Thomas hearings that we're sitting there watching on the TV, waiting for Dad to come home from Wall Street. And we're about to miss our flight. I mean, it's getting later and later. Finally, he gets there, and he calls us in one by one. So we come in one by one, and we're there, and he says, thank you very much, and he hands me an envelope of $20 bills. And so, thank you very much. And I'm still thinking, what the heck? Wait till you see what this is going to look like. I'm walking out. Fritz and Nick's envelopes have $100 bills. So now we're going back to LaGuardia Airport. I have a wad of cash stuffed in my pants. And I'm thinking, this is just, I can't believe this. And we're flying back, and Fritz looks at Nick, and he laughs, and he says, remember when you left your envelope on the plane? Oh. And I'm like, this is so unreal. So we get back to the airport. Now, this is the days when you could walk to the gate to meet your party. So Ray has now come to the gate to pick me up and meet me. He's sitting there looking, and he knows. Nick gets off the plane. There's another girlfriend that's there waiting for him. When he gets off the plane, a completely different girl. That's how you go through 9 lives. I mean, every day with Nick was just absolutely crazy. But I have to share another one that really was probably one of my absolute, if not my worst day at the Academy, because you'll probably end up seeing it soon on TV. So at the beginning, about a year ago, I'm looking at my phone, and it's Martin Blackman calling. And I'm going, Martin has never called me in his life. What the heck is Martin calling for? And I picked up, hey, Martin, what can I do for you? He said, we are going to be doing a docuseries on Andre. And we're wondering if you would help. I said, well, sure. I mean, what can I do to help you? And she said, well, we were looking for pictures, different photographs, or videotape of Andre. And I went, well, you just hit the mother lode. Because that was part of my job at the Academy. Is if Andre's forehand went off, I was supposed to be able to show you exactly where it was, how it happened, and everything else. And I had almost every match that I've been lugging around all these years every time we move. Thank you for helping me move. You know those boxes all too well. And they're asking for these tapes. But I also know that I have one box of tapes that has exactly what they want in it. They want original footage that nobody's seen. So one day, Nick had asked, they wanted to do a promo video for the Academy, and they wanted to do it in-house. Well, again, remember what I got? That crap little, VHS tapes. So I go out and I rent a better camera. I have no idea what I'm doing, as usual. I mean, you just go figure it out. Okay, yep, Nick, I got it. Gonna do it. So Andre's there for that day or two, and I'm videotaping Andre, and it's, he's doing autographs and all these things. But also, for years, my life research had been on movement and footwork with tennis. And I had done what would have been a PhD thesis on some of the movement, and that was one of the things I would lecture on. Fritz had seen it. He was raised boss with the adults, and he was aware of it, and he knew that part of it, I was talking about how Andre's movement on the ground strokes was correct. But the reason he struggled at the net was because he did exactly the opposite thing and the wrong thing. And Fritz goes, he was talking about it, and he's like, we need to work with Andre on this. He needs help. And I went, yeah. He said, I'm going to go talk to him about what you're doing. Now it's not going through me, so hopefully I'm not getting fired. Okay, so, yeah, Fritz, you go do it. And so now he's gone and he's talked to Andre. Well, let me tell you, Andre knew how to work Nick. I mean, he understood the politics of the academy. He knew how to work Nick. So I go out on court and I'm filming this. And Andre comes up to Nick and he says, Nick, I've really been having trouble with the movement up here. And I was watching Ed Burke. And Ed Burke is moving this way, and I was moving that way. What do you think? And he goes, oh, no, Ed Burke's wrong. You're right. And I'm behind the camera, rolling my eyes, going, Nick, no. Oh, God. And he's going, oh, no. Well, Andre kind of, makes it seem like it's Nick's idea. He starts working this. And it was genius to watch. And so he starts working him, and so within 10, 15 minutes, somebody starts walking by and saying, Nick's like, hey, come here. And he's grabbing anybody to tell him what he knows. And he goes, I had this dream last night. And in my dream, I envisioned this perfect footwork. And this is what Andre needs to do. He is now stealing my life's research, taking it as credit, lying about it in terms of it being this dream that he's had. And I'm having to stand there and film this with my heart just dropping to the floor. And I'm just going, oh, crap. So I've never watched it again. But when they called me and said, so they just now at the Australian Open, Courier was interviewing Andre. They were talking about the docuseries coming out. So you get the opportunity to know what was going on behind the camera as I am just sitting there going, oh, crap. This was a typical, normal, every day at the academy. At some point, we decide we're going to leave that insanity, and we go across the state to work for Rick Macy, which happens to be exactly at the same time that you would have seen a lot of the movie King Richard film. And I have to thank Doug Burbank, who wanted us to see it. So he actually, have y'all seen it yet? We're like, no. And he said, no, I think he wanted to see our reaction. So Ray and I are sitting there watching this movie going, that didn't happen. Oh, that's a lie. We're just like laughing the whole time. But thank you, Doug. I appreciate the tickets. So the first time a lot of y'all have played 2-on-2s or Ray's new version of it, Crazy Feet. First time we ever saw it was Venus and Serena were playing. It was the nastiest feeds we had ever seen. They were literally rolling the balls on the ground for feeds. They were giving the worst, toughest, and we're going, that's stupid. Nobody can get that. And they're getting it. But it was because they had done it all summer. This is all their favorite thing to do. And so you have to thank them for all those games that you played. That came with us watching Venus and Serena playing these crazy games. But in our group, we had this young kid, he was 11, had just been thrown out of the state of Texas because he'd gone over his penalty points. So they had gone to Florida now to play because he could no longer play for a whole year in Texas because in the 10 and unders, he had gone through his suspension points. He comes up to Ray, and he has the deepest wrinkle in his brow. I mean, it's just the angriest. I mean, he walked around like that. And Ray's a pretty big guy. He walks up, sticks his finger in Ray's face, and he says, "You've got to tell these kids to try harder. How do you expect me to be good if they don't try harder?" Andy Ryan. So, I mean, it's been, but who gets the opportunity for us to have been around all of these people? Then we have this small little hurricane, Hurricane Andrew, and somehow or another we end up in Jackson, Mississippi. Yay! With a whole new set of crazy and fun, lots of nicknames. And lots of fun players. We have Special K. We have the Swede. We have Shawshank Redemption. All right? We have Spider-Man. All right? Dr. Phil. I mean, Dr. Phil is just Dr. Phil. Because, I mean, when Phil came, the first time the Ossinsons bring him, and he's got a hole in his shoe like this. He speaks zero English. All right, does not say a word. All right, Tommy brings him out there. What y'all don't know, he's actually legally blind in one eye. And he's hitting every ball dead center in his strings. And we're like, oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, okay, you can hang out, you're pretty good. And you know, you have to thank a lot of these people over here. Because every time you need a racket, every time you need another pair of shoes, I call Miriam, I would call Beth, I would call this group, and it would be there for you. Is this a great country or what? Now he's Dr. Phil, married to a lawyer, and really successful. I mean, that's just fantastic. We had Special K, who, first of all, he could never show up to school, to class, to our group with a pair of tennis shoes. He forgot his tennis shoes like once a week. All we had to do was carry one size of shoes, and that pro shop down here made money. I mean, that was like, how do you forget your shoes every week? I mean, like, it's unbelievable. Devin, whatever you were wearing and it just got brand new that your mom had gotten you, we knew the next day Jacob Womack was coming out wearing the same thing. Shawnee, suffering for your sport is not on Shawnee's list of things to do. I mean, if she could run as fast as Kevin, as long as it was short sprint. But if you asked her to suffer, no. You know, and even coming in, so it was reminding me, Shawnee, of all the kick serves that you hit over here on what was court 6, there used to be 6 hard courts, shanking off the side of the building, ricocheting off the side. That poor little tree looked like it was a tennis ball tree. I mean, every day she's hitting the side of the building, nothing was in the court. Ah, Shawnee, I love you. All right? The Swede. Ray and I always remember the first day he showed up for practice. Raven brings him out. Raven says, I got a buddy. He's really pretty good. He can fit in. He's going to be good. And you always can tell the servers. The servers are always grabbing a ball and serving before practice. in between. They're always grabbing another ball, serving. And they're always going, well, what do you think about it? If I turn my hand this way, is it or that way? I mean, which one do you like better? Which one do you like better? I mean, it's always like, so the first ball he hits, he's over on court 5 here on the hard courts, top of the racket, clears the indoor center, hits the back clay courts, and we're yeah, he's going to be a good one. But I have to say, we thank you for having taught all the kids how to keep score. Because if you were not paying attention, he was swapping the score on you. Buffy, Buffy, I am sitting at Bridges. I'm like, she's late for her lesson. I'm looking at my phone. Buffy calls. I'm like, Buffy, where are you? She said, I can't make the lesson. I said, but where are you? I'm in home. Well, I'll come get you. No, you don't understand. I can't get there. Well, why can't you get there? I'm locked in my house. Wait, what? I'm locked in my house. I can't get out of my house. I went, open the door. She went, no, you don't understand. I'm locked in my house. I said, okay, open a window and climb out the window. She said, no, I can't get here. I'm locked inside my house. I'm still struggling with exactly how this works. I mean, okay. So a few months later, I'm sitting there. I get another phone call. Buffy, where are you? I can't make the lesson. I'm like, Buffy, what? Why can't you come for this lesson? She goes, I had a wreck. I'm so sorry, you mean we come out? No, it was a wreck in my driveway. I mean, like, all right. I mean, this is normal. Alibaba. Oh. So, at Bridges, these ladies are playing their JLTA matches. It was hot. It was real hot. So they had, you know those big pickles, steel pickles, you get one in a bag? Okay, some lady hadn't eaten it that morning. This was late in the afternoon. It was still sitting on the bench. Well, you know Greg. I mean, he's seeing this pickle sit there. I mean, what else could happen, right? So he sticks it in her water jug. And now everybody is sitting there in on the jug. They're all watching to see as she starts to take a sip out of her water jug. What's going to happen? No reaction. And everybody's staring at her like, are you going to drop dead? I mean, what the heck? No reaction. She keeps drinking it. They're all going, and they're staring at it. So finally somebody tells her, she is so mad at Ray. She is so, Ray finally had to send her home. But I think we've gotten over it, because a few years ago at Christmas, we get in a mail a pickle Christmas tree ornament. It is now one of our treasured possessions. When I moved up here, I could like triple wrap it and bubble wrap. It always comes wherever we're going. I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, we love it. I mean, Bunny, who comes to a match with a bunny rabbit on a leash? Okay? You want to know how she gets a name like that? I mean, that's pretty easy. See, I remember the first lesson you ever took. I remember where it was. It was at the courthouse on Lakeland Drive. He hit me. I put the fear of God in him. I could see him shaking all the way across the court. I think he's still shaking. T. Lloyd. Tommy did not like his middle name. So Ray's theory is, I'll just now make it part of your nickname. Everybody in the world is going to hear this name. You're going to get over this. I'm going to help you. Right? So, I mean, Tom, it's hard for some of y'all to believe, but I have pictures. Tommy was the skinniest little guy you've ever seen in your life. I mean, he was just rails. So we're out at Cypress Lake. And the geese start flying over. Tommy takes a ball and he just fires it as hard as he can. Poof, straight up. It hits one of the geese square in the chest. Poof, and you can hear it. This goose is flying by. And he's like, what the heck? So now, every time the geese start flying by, everybody's grabbing the balls. They're all involved. They're all grabbing balls, right? And I'm like, no, not the good balls. And everybody's firing balls up at the geese. The rest of the winter, we're having geese wars. They're coming down, bombing runs on us, pooping on us. So every little kids are firing balls at them. I'm like, okay. Then, you know, and Adam kind of, you know, was part of this. You would play on that top 4 courts, but if you lost on the 4th court, you had to go down to the other bank of courts. So if you lost on the the 4th court, I'm telling you, those matches were tough there because there was definitely some serious line calls there. I mean, they were like, okay. And then people would crawl down to the bottom bank. But if you won on the 4th court on the bottom bank, they're going up. So Tommy is so excited. He's won on the bottom bank. He's going to take off jogging up there. He steps off the concrete. And this is when it was brand new, all that mud silt. Tommy sinks into the mud up to his knee. He can't get out. Ray has to come pull Tommy out of the mud. He comes out with no shoe. We had to call Ginger to come bring him a shoe so he can finish the practice. I mean, every single day, the fun, Katie, don't even worry, we'll get there. I mean, Katie is like, can't make it to practice today. I've got my toughest class. Oh, I'm so sorry. I've got to make a good grade in this because I'm really struggling. I'm like, gosh, it's tough. Katie, what class is it? Art. I mean, this is so entertaining. Zacko. So Carrie is as stubborn as a mule. If you want to know Carrie is stubborn. And Carrie is not going to talk. Absolutely, she's not going to say a word. But if I ask Jordan Zachary the question, Jordan could answer in the most blonde way you have ever heard a question answered. And it would make Carrie so mad that answer was so dumb that she would go, no, that's not right. So I could never get Carrie to talk, but unless I just asked Jordan the question first, and that was my secret weapon for getting Carrie to talk. Yeah. So it's so much fun, and there's so many stories, but Ray is, I can't name them all, but Ray has promised that later on, he will be happy to fill in the rest. After we left, we went to Stewart, where it was an adventure. The Zacharys and the Britons got together and said, we'll give you 1 week. I don't care if you have furniture or not. The kids will be arriving in 1 week to train. And we're sending them with blow-up beds, so don't worry. It's absolutely true. Oh, and then 3 hurricanes, Wilma, Jean, and Francis. And we end up in Mandeville, roundabout. And a whole new group of fun and crazy. And with some great crazy staff. Welsh, I think, holds the record for being yelled at the loudest to move your feet. Are you kidding me, Welsh? If you don't move We had Jethro Bodine, who's probably out back wrestling some alligator down at his house. I mean, it is always entertaining. Hayden Bronco. Where is he? Hey. All right, you got every one of these guys. And when I sit down, you know, we've ended up somehow or another back up here in Jackson with a whole new list of stories. Oh, Kawasaki. There's too many of y'all in here. But I have to say, as far as this award, there's probably no award in my mind that would mean more to me because it's from the state of Mississippi. It's from you. And I love this state. And there's a part of my heart that will always live on 400 North Lamar. And it's my history. But that's not my real reward. The real award is getting for us to spend our lives with you. We were there when you cried. We were there when you laughed. We were there when you succeeded. We were there in your best moments and your worst moments. Our lives would have been so empty without you. You're the ones who've given so much to us. And the fact that I could share it with the love of my life every single day, who is the only guy who would put up with me, but amazingly knew the women's game as well as he knew the men's game. And would talk that with Steve. I mean, all right, a normal conversation with Steve and Ray is, okay, what racket was Vilas using in the fourth round of his U.S. Open run? I mean, this is a normal trivia question between the two of them. And it's so much to be able to share and do that with the two of them, with Ray at my side every single day, and he always was so kind to let me take so many spotlights, and I don't know many men who would work every day alongside your wife and let her take credit for half the things that he actually was doing. And so for that, I thank you immensely. I think the MTA, Russell, you've done a fantastic job. Thank you so much. Jimmy, fantastic, and thank you so much. We've worked with a lot of different offices. This is one of the best offices that you could possibly work with. And William, for all the times that I am now struggling with Tennis Lick and call you at 11 o'clock at night, 11:30 at night, I think with his eyes closed, he's going, okay, just click on this tab. This is what you're going to see. Thank you so much.
He does that for me too.
Oh, I know, he's fantastic. All right. Alcide, I mean, the meanest sunflower in the bunch. All right. I've got so many kids here that we love you all. But thank you. You have made what our lives give meaning. And for that, I am richly, richly, richly blessed. I don't know anybody who could have ever had the opportunities that I've been given to be able to be around Dennis Vandermeer at the prime of his career, Nick Bollettieri at the prime of his career, to be around Rick Macy during that time, Harry Hopman, I've seen him, Jim Lair, Coach Jim Burdick. I mean, all the top players with Monica, Andre, Jim Courier. How some small town girl from the middle of nowhere could possibly have been given those opportunities, I can only say it was by the grace of God. But thank you.